Mac and Mac here with you on Bridge 365. We got our usual Friday contributor. That would be Paul Domowitch from both JAKIBSports.com, 33rd Team as well. Just a quick side note, and I had to cheat, look this up, which you can't do while you're playing Quizzo. You can't cheat, but you can look it up afterwards.
How do they stop people from cheating? Everybody's got a phone.
The guy is a taskmaster, the guy who runs Quizzo. He's a good dude, too. Jimmy's great. The team that has lost the most Super Bowls, tied with the Denver Broncos, is the team that's won the most Super Bowls. That would be the New England Patriots. They are 6-5 in the big game. They've got them tied for the most wins and tied for the most losses as well.
Jeez, 11 Super Bowls.
That's pretty good. Yeah, and the Steelers have been to 11 as well. But the Steelers and the Patriots aren't in it this year. The 49ers and the Chiefs are. We'll start there, Damo. Who's winning the Super Bowl next week?
I'm going to hold off on that till next week.
He's not going to tell us squat today. He's not making his Super Bowl pick. He's not going to tell us all of it. You got opinions on the coaching changes the Eagles made? Or can we wrap this bad boy up right now?
No, I like both of the hires. You know, I mean, they screwed it up badly offensively because, you know, the change, you know, Nick talked at his press conference, about, you know, they needing to make changes and fresh ideas. They needed to make changes and fresh ideas last February. And he thought, you know, he was too arrogant. He thought no matter what defenses did to adjust, they had all the answers, that they didn't have to do much tweaking to their offense. And he was wrong. And it came back to bite him. You know, now too little too late. They found a scapegoat in Brian Johnson, but they hired a good guy in Kellen Moore, who I think is going to change this offense. It's going to be more inventive and creative, more motion, more under center. I mean, it's going to be fun to watch, and I think it'll be pretty good. You know, defensively, I mean, Vic Fangio is as good as they come. It's just that he's got his work cut out for him. I mean, they've got so many personnel issues that they've got to deal with. But if you look at his history, by the second or third year, and you know, San Francisco, he turned. You know, I mean, they were good as soon as he became defensive coordinator. But you look at Chicago, you look at Denver. By the second or third year, they were one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah, it helps when you get Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks. People forget how good.
Exactly.
So that, and hopefully he can build on that foundation. I think the guys are Carter and Davis. You got to build on them. You got to build on those two particular players and get them up to speed from a conditioning standpoint, all that kind of stuff. And we'll see how it shakes out. But you're right. I mean, Kellen's got better personnel coming in than Big. So it's going to be interesting. But from the standpoint of you're saying, and maybe you're right, maybe Nick was a little bit arrogant, thinking he could just move along seamlessly from two pretty good coordinators. Jody and I talked about that a lot. People were overlooking that, saying, no big deal. I was like, it's probably going to be a big deal at some point. And the reason I said that, Damo, was because young coaches, first-time coordinators, in the case of Sean, he had 1 year experience, still very young. They have growing pains. Why didn't Jeffrey Lurie figure this out? Why didn't Howie Roseman figure this out and say, you can go one of two ways. You can say, all right, if we go with these guys, we're going to have some growing pains. We have to have some patience. Yeah. Or if you say, nope, we got to get back to the Super Bowl, got to get better in guys. Now, they wanted Vic, but the timing didn't work out. So that's half of it. But how do you explain that part of it from Howie and Jeffrey's perspective?
Well, I think you're right. They wanted Vic. They ended up, you know, their season ended up going too long from that standpoint, and Vic was, you know, committed to Miami. So they decided, you know, I think they talked to Vic. I think they said, we're going to get mini Vic.
Yeah, they did. That's a lot of the reasons why Sean was here, because Vic said, hey, go get Sean.
Yeah. And I think they felt he had enough experience and everything to, and you know what? I mean, the biggest mistake there was not so much hiring Sean. I mean, because you know, I mean, he had to deal with personnel issues as well. I mean, the biggest catastrophe was firing him in midstream and putting Matt Patricia in charge. I mean, that was just the absolute stupidity. I don't know. They panicked. I don't know who panicked, because nobody will ever be honest with us. I can't believe that was strictly a Nick call. But that's the story they're selling right now. So I guess we got to buy it.
Yeah, I've said this a couple times since they had their meeting with the press last week. He made me believe. From the minute it happened, I said, "Oh man, they're pulling the marionette string on Sirianni to get this done." He sold me the other day, and yeah, maybe he got very good at lying this offseason, past season. I think we
got a lot of
practice
practice.
that, yes, but he did make me believe that it was his decision, and that goes back to that's a fireable offense. If you make that call in season, put your neck on the line, and you fail as badly as he and Patricia failed, yeah, you're gone. Yet they somehow decided to keep him and change everybody else. It doesn't seem to add up. And here's the other one, Damo, that I probably, I don't want to say by myself, but very few people on the island I'm on. I think Brian Johnson stunk. Plain and simple. Real easy. He wasn't good at his job. We heard of, the good relationship and the quarterback since he was in short pants and everything. I don't care. What were the results? How did it work? It didn't. He wasn't good at it. You don't know. I don't know. John doesn't know. Only Nick and Brian know when they're on the headsets during the game if Nick was actually telling them what to call, whatever. But their play calling was bad. My opinion, again, that not everybody shares, I think they put way too much on Jalen's plate. And, oh, by the way, Johnson threw him under the bus, not 1 week, 2 weeks in a row when they asked about running the football more. And he goes, you realize every time we go to the line of scrimmage, there's a run option, there's a pass option. And Jalen decides, as per what the defense looks like, which is the better particular one. And then that's the one he calls out. I know he was almost the MVP last year, but he's still a relatively young quarterback. You want him making every single call, every single play? That's what Johnson sounded like. That's where I think your arrogance comes in, that he just thought because Jalen had this unbelievable year last year and he was like this with Brian Johnson. Oh, those two guys will be great together. They weren't. Do you think it was fair for Johnson to pay for it with his job?
Well, no, I don't. But
Yeah,
this is the way I look at it, Jody. He was working under the constraints of Nick's offense. People adapted to Nick's offense. He still had to run it. He still had to figure out how to beat teams with it. Their RPO game stunk this year. I mean, they averaged last year, I believe, 8 point something per RPO. This year, it was half that. He made mistakes. I mean, the biggest problem I had with Brian this year is I never expected his relationship with Jalen to evolve the way it did. I thought that their familiarity with each other would help make the change from quarterbacks coach to offensive coordinator pretty smooth, and it would work well. They'd be in sync with each other. That didn't happen. Quarterback coach is basically to simplify it, a buddy for a quarterback. I mean, works on his mechanics with him, pats him on the back, does all that kind of stuff. We saw that, with Doug's guy when
press. Yeah, but not John. John was the kick in the ass guy.
Right.
John.
I'm not saying Jalen needed a kick in the ass, but we saw him this year. They weren't on the same page. He seemed to ignore Brian a few, several times when he would, go on his own out there, go rogue. So that's where I fault Brian. But again, I get back to the fact that this was Nick's offense. Nick's offense needed to be changed. He didn't adapt. And I mean, Brian was left calling plays with it. And it didn't work. I mean,
so let me follow up with this. And I know it's a hypothetical. I love my hypotheticals. If Shane Steichen had not gotten the Colts job and he was still here calling plays, do you think we would have seen the same regression of the Eagles offense because the league had figured it out?
I think Shane would have adapted a little bit more. He would have had the freedom to tell Nick, hey, Nick, we got to do some different things. And Nick would have said, okay. But I mean, Brian was in a situation where I don't think he kind of had that flexibility. I mean, he had to basically say, yes, boss. I mean, that's my perception of it. I'm not saying he's totally free from blame. I just don't think he should have been fired. The fact that he was, at least they hired a guy that I think is going to be successful here in Kellen Moore.
Yeah, and I'll just say, as far as killing from run to pass, I mean, every quarterback does that. That's the modern NFL. You can, or vice versa. That part is just that everybody's got that autonomy, and maybe a couple rookies, or maybe they don't go that far. But any veteran quarterback. Now, the other stuff evolved a little bit. We talk about the AJ play in Seattle. You know, Jalen had more on his plate to be able to change things like that. And that's about execution. I mean, that's not a bad decision if they execute it properly. You got to look the safety off, but you didn't do that.
Yeah.
You got to throw a nice ball to AJ Brown to give him a shot on a 50-50 ball, and maybe comes down with it. He's the best contested catch receiver in football. So it's not even a bad decision necessarily. It's just a bad throw. Probably at a bad time, because, you know, if you want to go try to kick the field goal, but they're trying to win the game. And I always joke, Seattle won the game on the same concept. Drew Lock executed. That was the difference. But as far as killing from run to pass, that's simple stuff. That's not too much on your plates.
Jalen didn't.
Would you say Jalen was good at it this year?
Killing from run to pass? Yeah. I'm sure he was fine.
All that
is
I'm
counting
looking
up
at the
the
results,
box.
and I'm not saying they were fine. The Eagles' offense went backwards this year.
Well, it went backwards because they were top 3. They ended up top 10. I mean, they still ran the ball effectively as a whole. All it is counting numbers. Oh, there's an extra guy in the box. Let's kill. I mean, that's all it is. It's a math equation. So if he can't, by the way, if he can't handle that, somebody should try to take the $255 million check back if they can, because if he can't handle that, he's screwed. I'm not going to go that far.
Jalen just didn't play as well this season. His decision-making wasn't as sharp. He became fixated with the deep ball, and teams took it away from him. I mean, he was 3 for 19 on deep balls in that 6-game collapse.
Yeah.
You know,
everybody started playing cover 2, and they were like trying to make big plays down the field, which is 4 quarters. Yeah.
You know, he just, I mean, he's going to have to change his approach. I think Kellen Moore will make him more willing to take checkdowns. They've got, you know, certainly they're going to be better at the blitz than they were in those last 6 games when they didn't seem to have an answer for anything. You know, you're going to see site adjustments with Moore. You're going to see, you know, willingness to dump it off to whomever the running backs are next year. You know, things like that. I mean, it's going to be interesting.
I hope everybody understands this question when I ask it, and I'm not trying to be obnoxious. Some people suggested that Tim McManus's question for Nick was obnoxious when they asked him, and what are you going to be doing since you're not calling plays? I'm not going down the route of he'll be giving out the orange slices at the halftime, but
that's an important job.
I know it is. How is that relationship going to work between he and Moore? Moore's coming in with a pretty good power base. He knows, he had the conversations with Howie and with Jeffrey, and he knows how much of this offense is his. It's supposedly going to be a mesh of the former Eagle offense with the new, fresh ideas that Kellen Moore is going to bring to the table. But at some point, you get to the cutting stage, and it's one guy's word over the others. Is it going to be the offensive coordinator, or is it going to be the head coach? I'm sure he's going to work hard to keep everybody happy on both sides. They're going to try and make this work, but there's going to come a point when they're disagreeing and the like. Who's going to win that battle?
I think to start, he's basically going to say it's your show, Kellen. You know, I mean, they're going to, you know, they've got how much, 6 months now to get to know each other, for Nick to get more familiar with what Kellen wants to do. But I mean, I think initially, I mean, he's going to be a CEO coach, and that's not a bad thing. There are a lot of successful CEO coaches in the league. You know, so I mean, this isn't a guy who's been, I mean, he's not going to be doing what he likes doing best, which is running the offense. But it gives a coach a chance to you know, to look at the big picture, to be more aware of game management on both sides of the ball, things like that. So, I mean, I like the move, especially since he ended up with 2 outstanding coordinators. But I mean, clearly they said, we're going to go in a different direction offensively, a different scheme, a different philosophy. Just back off, let Kellen do it. But I think, if you're the head coach, you're still going to have final say. He's going to see how things go with Kellen calling everything initially.
What am I missing here, Damo? When the Eagles are trying to spin this as Nick is all of a sudden the CEO coach. He already was a CEO coach. The difference to me is he was a CEO coach the minute he gave up play calling to Shane in year one. But the difference to me is he had autonomy, like he was, say, right. John Harbaugh. Now he's been told, oh, no. And to me, you look like Jason Garrett now. And you're basically, you can say, all right, I want to do things this way, but the owner's decreed you can't go do things this way. So can that work?
We're going to find out. I mean, his job depends on it working. So, he's going to bend over backwards to make it work. He's going to be less directly involved, even if he didn't call the plays with Shane or Brian. He certainly was on the headset, had some input, made some changes probably. There's going to be less of that this year. I love the part where he said, well, I might be sitting in on more defense.
Yeah, you sounded like a retired guy, Damo. Now you retired, but you didn't really retire. That's like Nick. Nick's like, well, maybe I'll go to the park. That's like you're saying, you're sitting there with your wife. What are you going to do today? Well, maybe I'll go to the park. Maybe I'll sit in a defensive meeting. That's what I thought about. But the minute it happened.
And then when Vic tells him to get the F out of the room.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
I like Vic. Maybe I'll go to a defensive mean.
He'll get shushed in the defensive meeting. That's probably not going to fly. When they get to the opening of camp, and they've got 2 no coordinators, and there's going to be a lot of change with the Eagles this year because of that, and good on them because I thought it was necessary. Is the Eagle philosophy of less is more going to play the same this year as it has the last several years, certainly the Sirianni-Roseman combo? Or is Vic Fangio going to go, wait a minute, we're done? What do you mean we're done? We've only been practicing for 4. Get the hell back out there on the field. How is the Eagles' overall standard of less is more from an injury protection situation going to play with Vic Fangio as their DC?
I think it's going to change a little bit, maybe a lot. First of all, offensively and defensively, they're learning new schemes, which is going to involve more off-season work. So there's that. We all know how bad the tackling was this year, which it seems to be an indictment of the fact that they did so little contact work. I don't know how much. You're limited on what you can do. But I think what we're going to see, the biggest difference we're going to see this year is we get to the preseason games. You're not going to see all the starters sitting on the bench. First of all, defensively, we may not even know who half the starters are, since they're going to have to win jobs. But I think that's we're going to see them get more work during training camp and the preseason than they have in the past, with less of there's going to be more of a risk that somebody gets hurt. We got to have these guys prepared to play week 1 rather than just prepared to be, healthy on week 1.
To further the Big Fangio talk, Damo, everybody loves him there. Jeffrey loves him. Howie loves him. Nick loves him. Is he loved enough to get Howie's ear and say, look, dude, I need some linebackers. I need some safeties to produce at the level you want me to produce at. Because that's what was wrong with the Eagles defense. And Denard Wilson got a congratulations to Denard. He's a defensive coordinator in Tennessee. He probably didn't think it at the time, but the best thing that happened to him was the Eagles passed him over, because they might have been a little bit better with Denard Wilson, but they didn't have the personnel. And Vic would have been out there, and they would have said, you know what, we're going to go get Vic. So I think it worked out long term for Denard. Good luck. But with Vic Fangio, can he have the kind of gravitas to say, I know you don't value it, but I need a damn linebacker?
I think so. I mean, I don't think Howie is going to change his structure as far as the money he spends on linebackers, maybe a little bit, but I think it'll be higher on the priority list where, I mean, they did draft Dean in the third round.
Third round. Yeah.
He spent last season hurt. They did spend a third round pick a few years ago on Davion Taylor, and he just turned out to be a complete mistake. So, it's not like they've ignored the position. That's the way Howie wants to build linebacker through the draft. He just doesn't know how to do it because he can't seem to make the right decisions. But I don't think Vic would have come here unless he had some guarantee that they were going to improve the situation at linebacker because of the importance of it in his defense.
Understood. I hope that Vic has enough sway to maybe move Howie a little bit. Do I think they're going to be taking a linebacker in the first round in this upcoming draft?
No.
That's not going to be happening. Damo, are the Eagles screwed in the NFC East if we find out that Chip Kelly is the new offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders? They hired Dan Quinn yesterday. There's already rumors about he could have some interest in Chip Kelly. Apparently, Chip also spoke to the Raiders, but they went with Cliff Kingsbury as their new offensive coordinator. So if Chip wants to get the hell out of college football, John's been talking about it for a week or two now. Nobody wants to be in college anymore because the transfer portal makes your life a living hell. You got to recruit a whole new team every
year.
Yeah. So they're all abandoning ship in the college football ranks. Chip Kelly brings his magic to Washington. How will the Eagles handle that if that happens?
That'd be fun, by the way. I hope that happens.
I would like to see, if he has the tools to see that offense and, the adjustments he's made since his last go around in the NFL to see how successful it could be. But you're right. I've been saying for the last 2-3 years since Nil came about and then the transfer portal, you're just going to see all these guys wanting to get out of the
man. The Boston College coach took the Green Bay DC job. Chip's looking to get out. Yeah, there's a bunch of those guys. But there's only a finite amount of jobs, so it's going to be difficult. I mean, that's got to be tough to. They got to recruit a guy 4 times. That basically, which is, and there was the quote. I forget. Pete Thamel got it from a source when the BC coach took the Green Bay job. He's like, "There's no time to coach. All you're doing is recruiting and trying to get NIL money lined up, and there's no time to coach."
Chip took the Eagles job in 2013 because he didn't like to recruit, and that was before all the crazy.
Yeah, he never wanted to go back to college. For people that there was all that talk right away, Damo, that he's going to go back to. No, he didn't want to go back to college. He was like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah,
at least it's only football at the NFL level. But yeah, I think Chip in Washington would be tremendously fun. I really do.
Yeah.
All right, Hall of Fame. I know you can't talk about it, but I want to know, do you know? How does this work? Do you know right now? Does Paul Domowitch know who's in the Hall of Fame? Or is that a blind vote when you get down to that final selection?
No, we know.
Okay. All right. That's all right. That for my edification.
I credit Jim Porter, who's been the executive director of the Hall of Fame for the last 3 years. I was never a big David Baker fan. Jim Porter, he's a former newspaper guy, and he trusts the people in the room to keep a secret. Sometimes.
So was it always that way, or has it changed?
Well, until COVID, we voted. We met.
The day
Saturday before the Super Bowl in the city of the Super Bowl, and so it was like by 5 o'clock. I mean, we still had to keep it. We had to keep it a secret for like 45 minutes until they would have a show that night. but they wanted it changed. I mean, COVID changed it. We started this year was supposed to be in person in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago. The weather wreaked havoc on that plan, and so they had to cancel the in person, and we did it on Zoom for the 4th straight year, I guess. Talked for 9 hours, I want to say. I mean, it was thorough. I would rather, we all would rather do it in person. It's better. You're looking people in the eye instead of at a screen like this. But that's the reality of it. But I credit them with 2 things: having the trust in us to keep it a secret. The other thing is they didn't like the old. Jim Porter did not like the old system, which they used for years, where we would vote on Saturday. Theoretically, all of the nominees, the 15 modern era candidates and the seniors and the contributor were in a hotel there, in the same hotel we were, waiting for the knock on the door.
Yeah, well, David seemed to enjoy that. David Baker.
If you were one of the people not getting the knock on the door, it was torture. It was, and it wasn't fair. It was, like you're watching them knock on the door next to you, and the guy's getting the news, and you're just like, it's just a bad setup, but they had it for years.
Yeah.
This year made for good video for whoever got in.
Yeah.
But you're right. Completely disparage whoever doesn't get in.
This year they changed it. This year we voted 2 weeks ago. I believe sometime in the last week or so, they went, they do that. If you've seen the show, they do last year and the year before, they do surprise visits to the homes of the people that made it, knock on their door, and then right the next day after they do all of that, they tell the people that didn't make it. So that's where that's how it stands. Everybody knows, but they would like it to be kept a secret until next Thursday, when they have the NFL Honors show and they make the announcement then.
Yeah.
Then I got to give a lot of people credit here. How many guys? You're one of how many selectors, Domo? 49. Plus those who got the good news on a visit and those who got the bad news on a visit. And not a word is leaked. Damn, you guys are good. In today's world, in the information broker age that we're in, with guys whose job, very highly paid jobs, to find this stuff out, to think that not one leak has happened so far, that's pretty damn impressive.
I think there were a couple last year.
I'm going to leak Julius Peppers is in the Hall of Fame. That's just that's
going out on a limb there, huh, Johnny Mac?
Going out on a limb. Going out.
But I think last year a couple of the guys that were either made it or didn't make it let it slip after.
Yeah, I would say that you guys, it's not a problem. That the actual people to get in, maybe they get excited and text a few people, and
or their 11-year-old daughter's in the room, and next thing you know, she's putting it on social media.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just trying to, they just want to keep it as confidential for as long as they can as possible, to add a little bit of, I guess, intrigue to the show on Thursday.
Yeah.
Now, Dama, do you know, because there is an actual jump around, hands up vote, or after the vote's over, do they release a list to you guys, just so you know, in case you hadn't figured it out as the vote winning, here's the way the results actually played out?
It's been a gradual process. I think 3 years ago, the first year that we did this by remote ahead of time, we did not know, beyond the reduction from 15 to 10, who made it, because they had us vote again with the 10, even when we were only voting for 5. We voted yes or no on 10 instead of 5. So that year we had, no idea. Since then, they have come to trust us, and we know right down to, we know.
I give you an actual list. Well, then, and you guys, again, I'm giving you credit, because I can't believe that at least one leak hasn't sprung so far. That's you guys take your job very seriously, and give you credit for it. And we're not going to beat it out of here on Birds 365. We're not even going to try. We know better than that.
That's because we trust you, Damo. We trust you at PDamo on X/Twitter. 33rd team, JAKIBsports.com in season per stat package. All right, I guess we'll end it back on the Eagles. The coaching staff, it's gone kind of slow. Back in the old days, the Senior Bowl would be sort of an assistant coach convention. You'd hire guys down there. To my knowledge, Howie and Nick weren't even down there. I saw Dom down there, which you would think one of them would be down there, but nobody's seen them. If they're not going to be at practice, what's the point? Yeah. So it surprised you that coaching staffs are taking as long, or it's seemingly taking as long.
A little bit, but I wonder too, though, how we talked about guys going from college to pros. Maybe some college defensive and offensive coordinators are considering taking position jobs in the NFL now because they don't want to deal with the whole college situation, and they have no aspirations to be head coach in college anymore because of the craziness. So I mean, that could be it. Maybe there are a lot of people. Because obviously people can't make lateral moves without permission from their team. So it's not like people are. If you've already hired your coordinators, it's not like you're waiting for the for the Super Bowl. So I don't know. Obviously, there are a lot of options out there, that the Eagles feel they don't have to hurry this. So,
Dom, the last thing, and since it plays off the question that John asked. And I know you're an NFL guy, but you follow the college game closely enough. Did college football screw itself over by making the transfer portal as easily accessible as it is? I'm usually a player empowerment guy, and I want the players to be able to use their lever and have as much as they could possibly have as far as determining their future and where they want to be and the like. But some of these guys have basically become professionals already. They got an extra $100,000 in NIL. Bob jumped to another team, and they played for the East-West Shrine game. Kevon Slovis. I remember a couple of years ago, one of my draft guys trying to talk me into he's going to be a top 10 NFL draft pick.
Yeah, when he was in Southern California. Yeah, how many schools is he at now?
3. He's finished up his BYU.
How about former?
I think his 8th year in college football. And I know COVID kind of gave everybody an extra year or whatever. But it's college football like
my guy DJ. You say his name. Jody can say his name. I can't. Yeah, thank you. Gesundheit. Thank you. What he transferred again?
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. He was at Clemson. He was at Oregon State. Now he's going to Florida State. I think it's unbelievable. Sam Hartman, the Notre Dame quarterback, looked like he was older than 3/4 of the NFL quarterbacks. That guy looks like he's 35 years old. He's been playing forever.
The only beneficiary of this has been Dr. Pepper, which is I've managed to make a couple great commercials off the transfer portal. If you've watched college football games and seen the commercials, but I think it's awful. I mean, I think there's nothing good about this. I agree. Players have for years got screwed with regard to not getting a penny of help. Of being, even if you were at the bottom of the roster at Notre Dame, you couldn't get out, and so there had to be some flex. It's not gonna destroy college football.
There's always unintended consequences, and people are really bad at being proactive, trying to figure those out. But and from a scouting standpoint, we were talking about that yesterday, Damo. How do you see if a guy plays 1 year at Clemson and Oregon State and Florida State? How does that weigh? You have different supporting cast. I would think it's harder to scout the guys as well.
Oh yeah,
with no continuity. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's also not going to. When these guys, how they introduce themselves at the beginning of games, like when they go through the starting lineups.
That's why Woodland Hills High School.
That's because they can't name the 6 schools they played at.
And I asked my buddy Rick Saratella this question the other night. I had him on my CBS show, and I'll ask each of you guys as well because it fits. you're an NFL scout. You're Eagles college scout, and you have two players, and they have exact same grades. One guy played all 4 years with the same university, and one guy played for 4 different universities that he just transferred every single year, got a little bit better. There's something to be said for having played in different systems, the ability to, and then there's something to be said for loyalty. That when you get him out, he's not going to be looking to get out when he becomes a Philadelphia Eagle if you're going to pick him. What do you mean I got to stay here? I changed my team 4 times in the last 4 years. How do you determine which is more important? The experience and the flexibility gained by moving from team to team to team, or the loyalty factor? If you had to make that call, exact same grade for the same player to same position, which are you taking, Damo?
I mean, it would be a negative for me if a guy just kept moving around. Jalen managed to straddle the line. He got benched, stayed at a place, stayed at Alabama for a year, there, and learned from it, and then went on to, then finally did transfer to Oklahoma I think he was one of those graduate.
Grad transfer. Yeah.
But that paid off, and he ended up going the second round. But yeah, it would be a negative to me with all these guys. If I had a guy that I was scouting and he couldn't seem to want to stay at the same place because the coach slighted him or whatever. He didn't like the food in the dormitory or whatever the hell.
Yeah, I'm a loyalty guy too. Damo, always a pleasure. Thanks. We appreciate you hopping on. Next time we come out and we get you back on. You still can't talk about the Hall of Fame, right? Oh no, it'll be Friday, so Thursday night is so we'll break it down with you next week if that's okay.
Sure.
Thanks, Damo.
Paul Domowitch right back with us next Friday here on Birds 365. And yeah, we'll be actually leading, and he better have a friggin' Super Bowl pick by then. He's not even gonna give us a hint of what he thinks.
No, well, you got to weigh it. I'm trying to talk myself into San Francisco. That's what I'm trying to. And I think they have the better team, but boy, I got burnt last year picking what I thought was the better team.
Yeah, we both did. And you continue to believe they were the better team afterwards. And I say, play the game. Whoever wins is the better team. That's Kansas City Chiefs. And I think that's the way we're going to have to look at this year's Super Bowl team. After the game's over and done with, they're that close. The 49ers and Chiefs right now, talent-wise, roster versus roster, are that close. And I said the same thing about Chiefs and Eagles. The rosters, they had the exact same record. The Chiefs had to work harder to get to the Super Bowl because the AFC was better than the NFC, and the Eagles had 2 blowouts to get there. So that's why I think the Vegas line or whatever, people might have overestimated the talent on the Eagle roster. I thought they were that close. Going into the game, they were that close, made the best team win. Kansas City won. They're the best team. I look at this Super Bowl the same exact way. The rosters are that close. Their accomplishments are that close. Made the best team win. And whoever won,
I think it's even more disparaging than last year. I think San Francisco's, if you go down it, I think significantly more talent, but they have more talent at the most important position, obviously, and they have the better coach and one of the greatest coaches of all time. They have a lot of good players, obviously, Kansas City, but you look at the skill positions, not even close. I was burnt. It's tough to pick against Patrick Mahomes these days, and I hate boiling it down to quarterback, but he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
And he's got a lot of football left in him. This is not a swan song for Patrick Mahomes by any stretch of the imagination. And yeah, I've been wise to back him the first 2 playoff games. I've not made my mind yet up either about the Super Bowl. But maybe I'm at this point leaning a little more heavily towards San Francisco's way than you are. All right, coming back, we going to get John Machota from The Athletic, the Dallas Cowboy beat writer. We've had John on the show many a time leading up to the Cowboys and Eagles matchups. Well, this time we're going to talk specifically about the new Eagles offensive coordinator. While we got John here, we'll ask him about who the hell's going to replace his boy Dan Quinn, since he took the Commander's job yesterday, and the Cowboys now need themselves a new DC. Could it be an actual trade? Quinn taking over the Commander's head coaching job, Ron Rivera going from Washington down to Dallas.
We're getting Mike Zimmer news too. Mike Zimmer wants back in Dallas. I don't know. Mike's getting up there.
Who's older, Zimmer or Fangio?
I think Zimmer.
You do?
Zimmer is, yeah.
Okay.
Vic just turned senior citizen. I think Mike
Is already getting that check in the
yeah.
mail.
I'll
Okay.
double check in the break.
We'll see that. All right, he's McMullen. I'm McDonald. You got Macca on Birds 365.